Everything in leadership and life is about relationships. It all starts with relationships. Relationship with ourselves first, to know how we want to show up, what kind of intention we want to bring to our roles, all of our roles in work and in life. And then we can, once we understand who we are and how we want to show up, it's about bringing that same intention to our interactions with others. And the work that I do with leadership teams, with senior executives, is really starting with that relationship piece and really working on the communication structures, the feedback loops, and really being clear about how we can plan. How can we plan those conversations differently? How can we shift the relationships that aren't functioning optimally? So one of the things that I talk about in my facilitations and also in my book is that there are templates that we can create. We can plan conversations, especially difficult ones. We can think them through. I always say that there's 3 parts. You can plan for how you want to show up in a meeting or in an interaction. Then when you're in the middle of it, if things don't go as planned, there's an importance of pausing and course correcting in the moment to ensure that whatever the interaction is, reaches the goal that you're after. And sometimes we aren't successful when we're in the meeting or the conversation. And so there's a third opportunity for us to look at relationships, and that is in reflection. And we can look back and we can say, well, what worked about that and what didn't? And there's always an opportunity to circle back around with people and make things even better. Sometimes we need to cultivate different relationships. Sometimes we need to put boundaries around relationships. Sometimes we need better communication structures. Sometimes we need to have courageous and difficult conversations with people. But the beauty of all of this is that there's hope, and that with intention and planning, we actually have the ability to impact our relationships and make them better in service of what it is that we're trying to achieve. So as human beings, we're not meant to live this life alone. And this past year during the pandemic, with virtual work and not being able to see people, has really highlighted the importance of human connection. And this really means that we have to work on our relationship skills more now than ever, particularly as we're re-entering work with hybrid models, sometimes being in person, getting used to being in person with people again. So really being acutely aware of the importance of how we come across, our tone, our manner, especially if we're communicating across the screen. What's happening behind the screens for people? What's the broader context? We now are in relationship with our work life very differently than we were before the pandemic. The boundaries between work and life, they're not there. They're blended. I've met more of my clients' kids and dogs and partners in the past year than I have in the past 20 years. And so as we move through the pandemic, what have we learned about relationships? What have we missed? What are the things that have been effective in how we have connected virtually? How do we pay attention differently? What are the questions that we need to ask to confirm, are we correct in our analysis of how someone's coming across? Is someone actually being critical, or is it that their kid's being homeschooled on the other side of the door and they're working out of a closet? Now more than ever, as we're heading into a hybrid workforce where there's a lot of uncertainty, lack of clarity around how this is going to work, it's vital to pay attention to how are we going to approach our relationships? How are we going to show up fully, being able to really see and hear people, being able to collaborate, work on teams, whether it be exclusively virtually, whether it be a mix of in-person. It's essential to pay attention to tone, manner. If we're not clear about what someone's saying or how they're coming across or where they're coming from, having the courage to ask. So a lot of the tools and the exercises that I like to work on with people help gain comfort and skills in these areas, and really being able to see behind the screens what's actually going on for people and how do we support them so they can show up fully in whatever our joint goals are.